Hi guys, welcome to our new podcast from Pillars of Property. I'm sat here with Mayor Dad Bahari and Mark Giorgio. I'm an architect and got very sound sort of planning experience as well, having worked in the industry with planners for 35 years. Mayor Dad is a very, very good engineer with Adkin Consultant. Mark Giorgio has his own Giorgio Properties company, and he's a very good contractor and developer in his own right as well. And because we've got these different skill sets, we are actually working together on a number of projects, which are all going very well. One of them is just outside Oxford in a village called Bayworth. We got obviously we did the design as architects. We also got the planning as well. And we usually like to work with very good planning consultants, especially on anything that's larger or potentially more controversial. On many of the one-off houses, we're comfortable doing all the planning ourselves. So I've got, I say, extensive planning experience, writing planning policy and actually working for local authorities, helping them assess what should and should not get planning. So we did this house at Bayworth, 5-bedroom detached, very contemporary design, modern methods of construction. And of course, that's a bit disparaging, not of course, but it was refused by the local authority. They said, we're not going to support it. Now, the site was, all the site basically was tar macadam, hard standing, and some old garages, the kind that you tend to get in the 60s, we get a row of sort of prefab garages. Knocked back by the local authority. We took it to appeal, and thank goodness we actually won the appeal. So that was done. We then did the building regulations drawings, technical package, and worked with Mayor Dad. Mayor Dad obviously did the engineering, and now it's on site with Mark. So we thought we'd just talk a bit about that project, guys. What did you find on that project, Mayor Dad, in terms of the investigations and the construction for the foundations design, etc.? Was it
Um,
unusual, or anything you learnt from it? Or was it
um,
straightforward?
yes, I think when we met on site first time, we quickly realized that the drainage is going to be the difficult part of that. It was quite in kind of isolated area, a little bit not very developed in terms of drainage and not very visible in terms of what's existing on site. And I'm sure you remember that we raised that very urgently with the client, saying we need to do more site investigations, and also because it was like sloping site. We needed maybe more investigation for the foundations just to make sure what we are providing and we are sending to the tender package for the contractors or potential contractors are actually having um, very reasonable kind of cost estimation for that. But I believe the client didn't take it that much serious, which is quite very understandable because of cash flow or like a budget limitation or like saving costs or just anything they want to just do it quicker as much as possible. And now we are on site. Um, we found like drainage not in the assumed location, so now we have to just apply for additional kind of local authorities, and then we potentially need to do diversion for the drainage. So the cost of construction is a lot more.
And the existing infrastructure, of course, very
Exactly.
often is not sound, so you need CCTV footage of existing pipe
Yeah,
work, don't you?
and it's not just the cost; it's all about times. It's not time of the professional or contractor, but also client side. And I believe in most of similar projects, they are just paying interest rate to the funders or who are just providing them funding for this project. And every week, delays costing them more than everyone who's in the project. So I think one of the key elements in all the project, not just this one, is just investing as much as possible on site investigation, having as much as you can further information. So all we design is not based on the assumption, it's based on solid facts you have from the site.
Yeah, you're right. For assumption, you could say wishful thinking. You can't do things based on wishful thinking, guys. And Medav's touched on a very important point, which is time. Even liaising with the other utility services, it could take 6 months or 9 months, and it can cost as well. It can cost 25 grand or 45 grand for a connection to some of these utilities. But perhaps even more important than the cost is the time. Like I say, do allow months and months on end. We're not exaggerating. It's better to get all these things nipped in the bud. Maybe even start the discussions a year before you need to be connected. It's a really important thing, isn't it?
Yeah, some project actually can change, like utility search or utility searcher can turn project from a very viable project to unaffordable project. We had a project in South London, It was about 36 flats, like 4-story building, concrete frame, and they knew there is some sort of like a surface water culvert going near the site, but they didn't know exactly where is that. So they got all the planning permission, all the affordability, cost estimation, everything in place. We are just going to design stage 4, and then now they demolished the existing building. They found out, okay, there is a big culvert or major culvert, like half a meter diameter, and then it's for Thames water, as said.
Mm.
So now you have to do diversion. And what's the cost of diversion? £500,000.
Yeah,
So
it's
half
a
a million
nightmare.
pounds, it just changed the whole project and
Yeah.
and it wasn't just the cost. The time you had to just do that because you have to go through the approved contractor through the local authority. It's taken possibly about 2 years to do that. So it literally unaffordable for the client. They had to just revert back the project.
Yeah, you don't want to discover these things when you're excavating the foundations, do you? I
Sadly.
mean, we had a similar project with one of ours that was being piled. And the problem is, even the authorities like Southern Water and Thames Water, there's often what we call black holes in their mapping, which often on a white page is listed just a white gap, and you're not quite sure what's going on the site. And it is incomplete. I mean, a lot of this data is incomplete, isn't it? And they blame the old local authorities because they say they inherit, which is probably true, they inherited that mapping from the old local authorities. But when you've got like a black hole like that, it is very, very worrying. You need to be very, very thorough. And even if you just investigate most of the site, sod's law, there's going to be a sewer in that other 10% that you've not investigated. I mean, we had a very, very bad case. I mean, luckily it didn't matter in the end because it was overcomable, which I'm not sure I've even shared with you guys, where we had a house that had 25 micropiles and everything was going fine. 24, bang, 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 good load-bearing resistance and everything. The last one, they did it and it disappeared. They said, where on earth has that gone? And it had disappeared into a sewer, of course. And it was a sewer that was on nobody's mapping, even Southern Water's mapping, I say, luckily we could work around that. There were workarounds to overcome that. But, it's a big worry, isn't it, when the mapping is incomplete like that.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, what are you finding, Mark, on the Oxford project and generally, because we work on other projects together. We're working on a project in Canterbury as well, aren't we, called
Yes.
Turn Again Lane?
Yes.
And that's a little bit of a misnomer because it's the narrowest lane that nobody could ever turn around in a million years. You literally have to drive down it and reverse back out again. So Turn Again Lane, I think someone's having a bit of a joke when they called it that. But how do you find, John, discuss about the project in Oxford first and then Turn Again?
Yes. Yeah. So the project in Oxford's going really well. We pretty much started the build mid-January, and that's a sit-panelled property, 5-bedroom. It's got balconies, and it's in a very picturesque location. We've come against some problems regarding obviously searches, surveys, especially when it comes to things like drainage. The client had put that off, even though it would always need to be done. The importance of having good drawings, your building reg drawings, your structural calculations, it helps the developer, the builder, the architect, and the structural engineer all work together to deliver the final project. Not having all of those elements is like having missing pieces within a jigsaw puzzle. You know what you're trying to achieve, but you can't quite get there because you don't have all the pieces, so to speak. The project's going really well. We've got all of the first fix, plumbing, the electrics, underfloor heating's in, it's plasterboarded, tape and joined. Paint should be going on the walls and ceilings this week as well. The air source heat pump is going to be designed to go there. I've got guys there today just looking at what system's going to be best for the application. So the planning.
Use like a sandwich panel,
Yes.
So,
Yeah, supply obviously with the installation between. That was all. So that was quite a difficult element of the build because we were sort of dependent on those being delivered and then getting them craned into position to get that built. We were delayed for a fair few weeks, which should have happened before Christmas, but as it got closer and closer to Christmas, it just sort of overran, and then we put a date in the diary to start sort of second week in January.
You did do a very good job on that, though, Mark,
Yeah,
didn't you? Because
yes.
one of the big problems with SIPS panels, obviously, it's millimeter perfect. We're talking about these sandwich construction guys where they've basically got high performance insulation sandwich with OSB each side, and it comes on site and it goes up in a day or two, the whole building. But the problem with that, I mean, we've even seen on Grand Designs and lots of other anecdotal sites that we're aware of, where if the footings and the oversight slab is not perfect, ready to receive that, I mean, you want it to be there or thereabouts within about 4 mil or 1 centimetre max. You don't want to be 2 feet too big or 2 feet too small, It's got to be almost perfect, hasn't it?
Yes.
I know the work you did in terms of all the concrete work and everything was perfect, wasn't
Yes.
it?
Yeah.
And did you, just for my benefit, did you then lay base plates ready to receive their timbers? Was that your job, or did they do that as well?
We did that. We basically
yeah.
oversized the slab slightly so that we could do the engineering bricks
Mhm.
and to also take the side wall that we built as well. So everything was done prior. We put a lot of thought and effort into future thinking, obviously, to make the project go smoother and better further onto it.
Yeah, fantastic.
Another project that we've all done together is that Turn Again Lane, which is in Canterbury, right in the centre of like the old town part of that. And we've converted that old architect's office from commercial to residential. We're nearly over the line with that. There's been some slight hurdles to overcome with like nutrients and neutrality, making sure that the application and the materials used are sympathetic to the style of the buildings. It's in a very sort of picturesque location, and you want to, you want to emphasise the true character of sort of the town centre of Canterbury and the history that has. And then when future tenants or occupants are living there, they're walking out on the doorstep to the back of the cathedral. So it's beautiful location.
It is nice, isn't it? I mean, basically, like Mark was saying, it's in the heart of Canterbury. Really, it really is a walk to in a way. But the heart of it was an old, I think, Victorian dairy, wasn't it?
Yes.
So that's maybe half the building, and the other half was an old sort of 1970s or 1980s office extension to that. And the great thing, well, one of the great things about that project, of course, is rather than so the whole thing was an office basically in its previous incarnation until a couple of years ago. One of the great things, rather than carving it into lots of little flats or lots of little HMO bedrooms, they're actually converting it for their own use as their own family home. So you can make a really nice house, isn't it?
Yes.
Which is really good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a good project to be working on together.
Yeah. I think you triggered something in me, Medad, which is really important from what you were saying, which is certainty, cost certainty. And really, the things in the ground do need to be known and sorted. You can't go burying your head in the sand or in the earth or the mud even. And you can't have the wishful thinking, like I touched on earlier, because, I mean, very often with projects, with building projects, there is quite a high level of certainty, provided you've got a good team on board for the superstructure. So anything above DPC, you pretty much know what you're doing. There's certainty there. And a lot of the uncertainty is in the ground. So there's no point even commencing a project on site unless you're absolutely certain or 99.9% certain of what's in the ground. Because otherwise, and it's good to know. So let's say wishful thinking, you say, oh, this is going to cost me £2 million to build cost. You might do the ground investigations and find out it's going to cost you £3 million. But at least if you do that, you know it's going to cost you £3 million. There's no point starting a project thinking it's going to be 2 million, then finding out halfway through the build it's 3 million, because you might not be able to access those extra funds, or it might delay the project while you're accessing funds, or even, I say, kibosh, stop the project dead in its tracks. So I say certainty is so important, isn't it?
Yes, it's very important. I understand why the clients are a little bit reluctant just to carry out all the site investigations. So the main item is because of the cost of the investigation. And you would be surprised saying it's not just private clients, also public sector. They are not very keen to do all the investigations. Is one of the reason obviously cash flow. So because the budget is not allocated both for private or public clients. So the private clients mainly doing those as part of their investment part. So they don't have actually the approval from the funders. So they don't want to spend or risk it too much. They want to just get the money from the funders and then going accepting the risk, potentially going moving forward. And another thing, they are not actually aware or they don't really understand that risk of uncertainty. They are possibly thinking about, okay, there's going to be some additional cost, maybe diversion of the pipes, or like it's going to be a little bit changes of the piling, like arrangement. It's going to be resolved with some sort of like technical or some sort of value engineering, so we can just resolve it quickly. But when it comes to below ground, everything is just very much related to uh, local authorities. So, like for example, Thames Water or Southern Water or these kind of authorities, they have very particular kind of technical kind of regulation that you have to follow. That it's not like you're saying, "Oh, there's a pipe there, so I'm just designing foundation slightly different from yours," and job done. No, you have to follow whatever they are instructing you,
Yep.
and you have to follow their approved contractor, and they have to just follow their particular check-in team, which is going to be a lot more expensive, and not just the cost, it's going to be a lot more time consuming. But if the client understand this risk, then they are possibly more willingly invest on some sort of site investigations on that one. But again, when you're coming to these kind of uncertainty, time is more important, especially in public sector project, which is they want to finish everything in particular time frame of like a allocated budget for that year, financial year. They want to make sure that job is being delivered, or it's something very critical, like NHS, for example, you need to deliver it to them, like patients, they wouldn't need to use it.
Or they want to cut the ribbon before they get kicked out.
Or-
Seriously,
or that
even at
could
a
be
local authority, mayoral
exactly.
level.
So if there is any delays happening for the principal contractor, they definitely coming back to the engineers or like the design team saying and putting a lot more pressure. So you have to just take that stress and extra work and potentially not even being able to charge it because everything is just quite very stressful and making sure you're delivering the job. But all these hassles happen because someone didn't realize that they need to allocate more budget or time for
Yeah,
site
and that's
investigation.
part of not just the certainty, it's about being realistic as well, isn't it? Because it is real money. They might just be spending a departmental budget that they might get from Whitehall ultimately, but you can't just go selling a few more gilt bonds. It is at the end of the day, it's real money, real taxpayers, and the scrutiny of people like the Taxpayers Alliance. They've got to realise they're spending real people's money, and also I think there's perhaps not so much now, but there is a feeling that I've touched on before that very often politicians don't give the real number. They just say what's politically acceptable at that time, or politically,
HS2.
yeah, exactly, political palatable at the time. So they say 35 billion is politically palatable thing to say. Well, it's actually 100 billion. Not entirely. It's because of different costs. I mentioned about tunneling under the Chiltern Hills, for example, and the £100 million Bat Tunnel. But so there are legitimate things that's gone up by. But if they said 100 billion, say 6 years ago, it may never have, got off the drawing board. So in a way, it's a bit like the Grand Designs projects, isn't it? Very often they say, if we'd known what we know now, we probably never would have started. So I think HS2 is good, but certainly in terms of the numbers, people need to get a grip on the numbers, don't they? And I think you were saying some of the QSs have been sort of lent on, and so they need to be much better in future.
Yeah, well, there could be also an opportunity if you have adequate information from your below ground or adequate information from your site, and you find out this is unaffordable or not viable, financially not viable from that point of view, you might, because there is a need for that, say for example HS2 or similar project, you still have that need. So you might think about maybe a more cost efficient engineering solution or architectural solution,
Yeah.
and just provide that solution for that need, but at the same time make sure this is more economical.
Yeah, you're right. Value engineer it.
Exactly.
So you got a similar product, but done in a more efficient, cheaper way.
Yes.
Like you say, the fact it's overrunning forces you to make that decision. Yeah, that's a really important thing. You've touched on something really important there. That it triggers that process of revisiting it at design stage, which you can't do very often once it's on site. Yeah, well done, mate. That's really important.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. Anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, it's quite funny actually. So when you get a client, you charge them as much as you can, obviously, to offer all of your services. So they have all of the plans and structural calcs, and it comes to me at the end that has to try and wangle to get the project delivered. And you get can you just, it's like, can you just do this? Can you just do that? Because obviously they don't have the budget in hand, but budgets are a massive thing even at our stage of the project or development, because clients want to have that finish, and the finishing touches are what people see as in their first impression. So we have to make sure that we deliver obviously the project within the budget that we've set out, and increasing costs obviously that we're all incurring, which are only going to go up, have to be sort of managed and maintained. So I think, yeah, it's a big thing obviously to make sure that we're all conscious of what the client is hoping to achieve, and then that we, collectively deliver it.
It's a good point, actually, because talking about if spec isn't pre-agreed to a high level,
Yeah.
Anything that's like, say, contracted design portion, for example, and at your discretion,
Yes.
if the client's leaning on you to do something as cheap as possible, and you've got your own discretion about what you actually do, say, for example, skirting boards, let's say something really, really simple.
Yeah.
They can't, if they're paying basic,
Yeah.
you're bound to put in a basic skirting board.
Yeah.
They can't expect you to put in a luxury skirting board or
No.
deep, not that I like them anyway, but deep oak ones
Yeah.
with the beveled edge and
Yeah.
the OG curves and stuff. That's unfair, because that
Yeah.
inevitably will eat into your margin,
Definitely.
even to the point where many developers, their margin goes down to zero.
Yeah.
Then if that goes on for 3 or 4 months, they go bust, of course.
Yeah.
You can't squeeze contractors down in an unfair way. They've got to
No.
be very fair to everybody, really,
That's
including contractors.
And the contractor's grade of, say, like sanitary ware, kitchens, even things like the timber, like the skirtings, architrave, and the hardware as well, even like hinges and handles. There's such a variance in price and quality, and you do get what you pay for. There are some extreme sort of costs and sort of styles and features that you can put into a house, but it's all down to your preference and what you're hoping to achieve in the back end. If you're going to live there, you can sustain the additional cost because you're going to be seeing it. It's for you to enjoy, your household that you've created. But if it's to sell on, you've got to be diplomatic and watch the budget, because you don't want to overspend and then reduce your profitability, and obviously not earn as much to be able to then get onto the next project. So,
well, as you know, when we work together on projects that lead to you, we always ask that to ensure it's proportionate to the project in question, don't we? So, for example, you wouldn't put a £70,000 kitchen in a £220,000 house.
Well, if I was asked, I would.
Yeah, true. We pay good money for it. But equally, you wouldn't put a £9,000 kitchen in a £2 million house.
No.
It's got to be proportionate and sensible.
Yeah.
And that's basically our instruction to you. And then we sort of, verify that's what's going on and what you've allowed for, isn't it?
But that goes back to the whole planning and sort of explain to the client what is possible, achievable, and also affordable. It allows them to know what they're going to be getting. They might not like the style, the colour, even the size. So it's making sure that you're delivering what they're expecting, and then hoping to have a happy customer.
Yeah, and getting feedback from the client in a timely way as well.
Yes.
Very important. Otherwise, the program will slip.
Yes.
And it's their fault, isn't it?
Yes.
And they might blame you.
Well,
ironically.
always, yeah.
But okay. I think we'll wrap it there, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. We've given some really good actual examples of some of the projects we're working on together. And lots of good information there, because it's all a learning curve. People learn stuff every day. We learn stuff every day and every week on our projects. But certainly, I think we've touched on the main thing is certainty and being realistic about projects. Cheers, guys.